Elections 2024, done and dusted, or is it really done and dusted? Because now the hard work starts. The coalitions, the various politicking that will still happen, even post-elections as well. And I thought let's invite a couple of people into studio and unpack how elections 24 unfolded. First up, I'd like to welcome my resident guest, Ighsaan Higgins, who's an attorney. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam, Luqman, and assalamu alaikum to all the viewers.
Jazakallah so much. And then from the NCC party, Brother Fadiel Adams, I had him in before, prior to the elections. Now it's post-election talks. Fadiel, shukr for coming in. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam to both of you.
So it's been a very interesting week and a half. You know, I'm sure you guys are running on fumes, being part of political arena as well. But Fadiel, maybe if you can unpack for us, the IEC said the elections was free and fair. What is your opinion?
I don't want to be fighting with the IEC, but there were so many discrepancies there. It just makes one wonder what could have been, what should have been. You know, I'm of the opinion that if Luqman has worked for 100 votes, then he should be rewarded with 100 votes, not 99, not 101. And at too many VDs, voting districts, there were just so many complaints, it's unreal.
Yeah, in your area, in your districts, were there any major concerns?
Hanover Park, almost 600 people voted for us at one VD on the regional and provincial ballot. Not a single person voted on the national ballot. That's unthinkable. In Pelican Park, our party agents were evicted from the premises. So no one should be alone with the voting ballot, with the voting boxes.
Right.
These are the things that concerned us. These are the complaints that we've logged. The IEC seems to find that the election is still free and fair. We're not in a position to fight with the IEC.
Right.
You know, we can take it to the electoral court, but it's like me suing you and you being the judge as well. So it's that's kind of besides the point.
Get you. So?
Yeah, I think there's been obviously a lot of complaints, and the smaller parties obviously are not in a position to fight the mighty IEC.
Right.
The bigger parties, you know, they are in coalition talks, and so obviously they don't have the appetite to fight about whether an election was free and fair. So obviously, South African public is obviously all left with a question mark. And I think it's when something is declared free and fair, there should be no question.
Correct.
It should be actually as clean as possible. There is a provision in the Constitution, I think it is Section 46, where an election can be obviously brought into question. On the first level, it's if, you know, we got 7 days to declare, and which obviously they complied with that. But the second one is if there's a court order.
Okay.
So of course, there's still court proceedings underway. I'm understanding that, Fadiel.
Yes.
And so, of course, if a court orders that an election has not been free and fair, whatever, there is obviously a possibility, but we could have a re-election, and that must be called within 90 days.
Yeah.
And that's in the Constitution.
Yeah. It has so many, ripple effects as well. Our rand took a knock, slowly started to recover. Post the elections as well. It's been so well before the elections. So all this is a ripple effect on all of us, affects all of us as well. Being one of the parties that rallied quite a lot as well, Fadiel, what have you learned the most from this election?
Never to do it again. We've learned that there are reasons why so many people are compromised. You know, the financial implications of running a national election is huge. We went into this election with 14,000 rand. I mean, you know, when you go with 14,000 rand and people are spending 50 million, 35 million, and 170 million upwards, we've learned that we've outpunched. We've played above our weight division, and we've come out credibly. We've also learned that it's not necessary to compromise your principles for money. That sometimes it's okay to go to war on an empty stomach like we did.
Interesting thoughts as well. Ighsaan, in terms of the coalitions that's possibly going to happen, who do you think is going to get into bed together, proverbially get into bed together?
I don't want to pontificate about any form of coalition. My problem was pontificating on it, that these coalition talks must be done on the basis of principle. And if it is done on the basis of outside interference or financial considerations, I mean, the only thing we've heard thus far in the news is the markets.
Mm.
What does the markets favor? And the rand, going up or down. I don't think that should be the consideration.
Mm.
South Africans are used to being poor.
Mm.
And we can still be poor for a few weeks, to resolve this thing. But I do believe coalition should be based on principle.
Mm.
It should not be based on financial considerations. I mean, South Africa will survive. We went through CODESA. We went through a whole lot of issues in this country.
Mm-hmm.
We survived.
Mm.
So I'm hoping that the ANC will make the right decision.
Right.
And it will be the decision that reflects the will of the majority of people in this country, and not get into bed simply because they are dictated to by the markets. And when the markets is so undefined, when people always speak about the markets, it was the face behind the markets. So that's why I don't want to pontificate on the issue of who will be that coalition.
Gotcha.
The big problem is if the ANC decide to get into bed with the DA, there may be problems, not only externally, but within the ANC there will be a problem.
Yeah, I mean, there's been politicians like Lindiwe Sisulu that's already
Yes, and she's on the
highlighted,
NCC.
highlighted her fear.
Then, of course, there will be problems with parties like MK, and maybe even with the EFF. I don't know. We'll hear from the EFF soon. But the reality of it is that it must be based on principle.
Yeah.
And that's the first thing. And the second thing is it must benefit the majority of South Africans. It must not be based on narrow interests. And so I mean, we'll have to wait a few days, and I think we can comment after that if we are in the position to do so.
Inshallah. Fadiel, how many seats did you guys manage to retain?
We won 2 seats in the National Assembly.
National Assembly. Those 2 seats, what are you hoping to make a difference by having those seats?
Let me tell you something. In this country, no one seems to have the appetite to fight corruption.
Okay.
Corruption is the number 1 killer in this country.
Yeah.
The NCC is coming to Parliament to fight corruption, like we did in the city of Cape Town.
Yeah.
To this day, we're still the only party to have the DA in the dock for fraud and corruption, countrywide, out of 300 parties. We plan to do the same thing to the ANC. Once we stop corruption, everything gets better. There'll be more money to spend on the poor. Service delivery will become easier to access. And sadly, not a single person of note in national government has ever gone to jail despite the trillions of rands that have disappeared. That says a lot about the opponents the ANC has in Parliament.
There have been quite a few political parties campaigning on the back of Palestine and the war in Gaza, which we all can relate to, and all raised our fists in anger as well. Do you think that the Muslim vote was split tremendously, or did those particular parties expect the Muslim vote to come to their party?
I think many parties went to war on the issue of Palestine for votes. For us, it was more a humanitarian thing. I really didn't care who people voted for. The plight of the Palestinian child will always be very close to our hearts, and it was never meant to be used as a campaign tool. Just like hunger, it's not meant to be used as a campaign tool. And I think people learned, especially the ANC, that carrying Palestinian flags, loving Palestinian children, that wasn't going to bring votes.
Right.
If the ANC was sincere about Palestine, it would care about the Palestinian people of the Western Cape, that being the colored people, and they simply aren't.
Ighsaan?
Yeah, no, I look at the small parties. You're asking about the Muslim vote. But my concern is more that everybody was given a day off. It was a public holiday on election day. What doesn't make sense to me is that some people are not registered. Now, how do you give somebody a day off that's not even registered to vote?
Good point.
Of course he's not going to vote because it's just a holiday.
It's another day to braai.
Another day to braai, another day to party. But the reality is the country suffered. The country suffered due to lack of people.
Voter turnout,
So I think we need electoral reform. What we need is, and it will benefit parties like Fadiel's party and many other parties, where you have a situation where if we have electoral reform and we can actually make it compulsory for people to at least register. Because then otherwise you don't have access to any form of services or whatever the case may be. There's ways to do it.
Of course.
But I think once people are registered, then it's their choice whether to go vote or not. But they must be in a position to do so if they want to.
I like that. I think that's a very, very important point. Fadiel, in closing, your message to our audience with regards to your political party and what can we expect from you and your members over the next couple of months?
I would. This is a party. No, we're not burning anything. We're not burning anything. This is a party that was built on principle.
Right.
And we've tried our best to stick to our principles. And I think we, for the most part, succeeded. This is a party that was unsure whether it would be on the ballot, but when it came on the ballot, we knew that we were going to get representation. Yeah. We are pleasantly surprised by the amount of people who came out. Remember, we didn't hand out t-shirts or food parcels. We didn't make anyone drunk. The votes you saw on the board, those are the votes of lives we've changed. That's the appeal of this party. And going forward, we're going to grow. I can tell you, you'll see the difference we make in Parliament. People are going to say small parties can't do anything. We invite them back to the press conference in a few months.
Are you open to coalitions as well?
No, sir. Coalitions, we find generally don't serve the people. Okay. I'll tell you what's going to happen now. The ANC and the DA may go into coalition. The DA is going to go inside to tear the ANC up. And then they'll walk away from the coalition 6 months to 9 months before the election, claiming that they can't work with these fraudsters. That's exactly what's going to happen. This coalition the DA is planning is not for the people of South Africa. We got two sets of people here, two sets of ideologies. Neither one of them cares about poor people of color. This coalition, this is the doomsday coalition. This is the one that's going to end the aspirations of poor South Africans, irrespective of color.
Interesting. Fadiel, Jazakallah so much for coming into studio. I appreciate it.